I became a park ranger last summer. My father had just passed away, and I thought being in nature would help me heal. The riverbank near my small town was peaceful at night. I felt a mix of excitement and fear patrolling it alone. It was familiar, yet being there in the dark was unsettling. One night, I was checking the trails. I spotted flickering lights across the river. My heart sank. I knew there weren't any campsites over there. At first, I thought they might be campers hiding, trying to stay out of sight. Then, the lights blinked out, leaving me in darkness. I stood frozen, convincing myself I was imagining things. A couple of nights passed quietly. I felt calmer, and the bugs buzzed, making everything feel more normal. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. But one night, whispers danced on the breeze. I stepped out of my cabin, straining to hear. The words were lost in the rustling leaves. I was alone, but it felt like someone was close by. Weeks rolled on, and odd things kept happening. I saw shapes darting between the trees. I dismissed them as my imagination. Then, the lights returned. This time, laughter echoed across the water. It sounded playful, but I knew no one was there. I scanned the riverbank for any signs of life, but I saw nothing. Goosebumps prickled my arms. My mind raced with confusion. I moved closer to the water, trying to see who was laughing. The sound faded as quickly as it came, and I felt a weight settle in my gut. Doubts crept in. Was I losing my mind? I turned to head back to my cabin, a sense of unease creeping up my spine. That nagging feeling told me I wasn't alone. Suddenly, I heard something behind me. I stopped, unable to move. Is anyone there? I called out, barely above a whisper. The silence was thick, and I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. Then I heard it again, right behind me. I was frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The sound stopped as suddenly as it started, leaving the river to rush in the quiet. I felt eyes watching me from the shadows. "Who's there?" I whispered, my heart racing. Deep down, I knew I wouldn't like the answer. Every night after that, I could feel something lurking nearby. I kept my cabin door locked tight. I would sit on my bed, listening to the river flow and the whispers swirling outside. It felt like they were right at the edge of my hearing, just out of reach. I tried to tell myself it was the grief, playing tricks on me. I had to remind myself I was just a ranger. A part of me longed for it to end, to figure it all out, but I also feared what the truth might be. The river sparkled under the stars, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me in the dark. And the summer nights grew longer, the laughter echoing in my mind. I spent the next few nights in a restless haze. My dreams were filled with shadowy figures and echoing laughter. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel something lingering, just beyond my reach. I figured I should face this anxiety head-on, so I decided to patrol the riverbank more often. I needed answers. One evening, I set out with my flashlight tucked under my arm. The night was eerily quiet, too quiet. I walked the familiar trail, scanning the shadows for anything out of the ordinary. The stars twinkled above, but the beauty of the night felt overshadowed by my growing dread. As I neared the spot where I'd seen the lights before, an uneasy feeling washed over me. It was as though the air thickened, pressing down on me. I stepped closer to the water, trying to reassure myself that it was just in my head. That's when I saw it again, a flicker of light across the river, just like before. I held my breath, the beam from my flashlight trembling as I aimed it toward the glow. It danced between the trees, illuminating patches of faded grass. I couldn't help but feel a pull toward it. I took a hesitant step closer. The laughter returned, this time clearer. It was joyous, inviting a stark contrast to the fear that gripped me. I hesitated. I had to know what it was. I crossed the river, feeling the cool breeze on my face. Each step felt heavy. Just as I reached the midpoint, the laughter cut off suddenly. Silence enveloped me. My heart raced, unease churned in my stomach. I reached the riverbank, scanning the area but found nothing. The light had vanished, leaving me standing in darkness. Then, a rustle made me jump. I turned quickly, shining my flashlight into the trees. My heart pounded as a shape moved behind a bush. I called out, "Hello?" No response. Just my voice bouncing off the trees, swallowed by the night. I felt a chill. Maybe I had seen something, maybe it was just an animal. I tried to convince myself. But that didn't erase the feeling of being watched, nor did it chase away the sense of foreboding. I took a few steps back toward the path when I heard it again, the laughter. This time, it sounded closer. My pulse quickened. I turned around, but there was no one and nothing in sight. "Who's there?" I shouted, the panic rising in my throat. The laughter stopped, replaced by silence. I felt a sudden rush of cold air, and instinctively, I turned and ran. The darkness seemed to close in on me as I dashed down the trail, my flashlight barely illuminating the way. When I reached my cabin, I locked the door tight behind me, my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it was, it knew I was there. As I leaned back against the door, catching my breath, I tried to reason through it all. But deep down, I felt a shift. This wasn't just about me anymore. There was something more. Just as I began to calm down, I heard a soft knock on the door. My stomach dropped. I wasn't alone. I hesitated, heart pounding, before whispering, "Who is it?" The night outside held its breath, waiting for my response. I waited, my breath caught in my throat. The shadows outside felt alive, always shifting, always watching. I pressed my ear against the door, hoping to hear something, anything, but the silence was thick and heavy. Then I heard it again, a knock, almost hesitant. "Let me in." The voice was soft, whisper-like, yet its urgency sent chills down my spine. "Who are you?" I called back, trying to keep my tone steady. My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Was it someone lost? Or something worse? "Please," the voice pleaded. "I need your help." That made my skin crawl. I wasn't ready to let anyone or anything inside, but curiosity gnawed at me. What did this voice mean? Help? The word echoed in my mind, mixing with the laughter from the river. I took a shaky step back and glanced around the cabin, looking for something, anything that could protect me. My heart thumped loudly in my chest as I decided to peek out through the window. The moonlight caught a glimpse of a figure standing just beyond my door. But it was different. I wanted to scream and run, but I stayed frozen. The person resembled a child, maybe 10 years old. Their clothes were tattered, and they looked soaked as if they'd just come from the river. "Please. I'm scared." They cried again, and the tremor in their voice made me ache. It felt wrong, but I couldn't ignore the fear in their tone. I hesitated, my thoughts tangled. What if this was a trap? What if they were leading me into danger? The laughter from earlier crept back into my mind, a sinister reminder of what could lie beyond my door. I can't let you in," I stammered, my voice shaking. "Are you lost?" Silence lingered, and then, "No. I'm hiding. From them." "Who?" I asked, needing clarity, yet feeling the sense of dread unfold within me again. I felt drawn to their plea, yet every instinct told me to stay put, to retreat deeper into my own safety. I watched them closely, something about their features felt familiar, yet wrong. As I opened my mouth to ask another question, they suddenly turned and glanced over their shoulder. The look of pure terror on their face made my blood run cold. They turned back to me, eyes wide. "You have to hide. They're coming." Just then, the knocking turned frantic, more urgent, pounding at my door as if to break it down. The cabin felt small, suffocating. The child's eyes flicked nervously back toward the woods where the sounds of rustling leaves began to gather around us. "Please, please." Their voice broke through the chaos creeping in from outside. I had no idea what we were up against. That's when I heard them footsteps. Heavy and deliberate, drawing closer. My heart raced as darkness seemed to swallow the edge of my window. My instincts screamed at me to flee or to do something, anything. But all I could manage was to stare at the child standing there. They were right, I wasn't alone anymore. I took a breath and moved away from the door, but not before whispering, "You can wait outside for a little longer, right?" I prayed it would buy me time. Just as I was about to make my decision, the knocking stopped. Silence blanketed the room again, and everything shifted. What was out there? And, just like that, the child was gone. I blinked in disbelief, my heart pounding. Where had the child gone? Panic crept into my chest as the shadows around me deepened. The door loomed like a barrier between my fragile safety and the unknown. I stared at it, half expecting the knocking to start again, but only silence filled the room. I stepped back, frozen between wanting to bolt out of the cabin and the instinct to stay hidden. The window felt like a portal to the outside world, and I hesitated. The trees loomed closer, their branches scratching against the cabin walls. Maybe the child had run away. Maybe they were smart to do so. But what about them? I shivered at the thought. Fear rolled through me, making my breath hitch. Just then, I heard whispering outside, soft, almost melodic but laced with something sinister. I moved closer to the window, peeking through the thin curtain. The moonlight revealed two shadowy figures standing by the riverbank. I couldn't make out their faces, but their movements were fluid, almost dance-like. They seemed to be watching the cabin. I ducked back just in time as one turned its head. A cold sweat broke over me. I couldn't breathe. Should I call for help? Should I try to signal to the child if they hadn't gone far? Before I could decide, the whispers grew louder, taking on a haunting rhythm that crept under my skin. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stifle the fear bubbling up inside me. Then, without warning, a rock hit the side of the cabin. I jumped and spun around, adrenaline kicking in. Something was definitely out there. The whispers intensified, filling the air with a chaotic cadence. I slammed my hands against the wooden walls, my heart racing. I had to know what was happening. With a deep breath, I chanced another glance outside. The figures had changed. They were now much closer. I could see their eyes blank, almost lifeless, but filled with a strange desire that sent a chill down my spine. They raised their arms slowly, pointing toward the cabin. I felt my stomach drop as they began to chant. It was a low hum at first, building into a disjointed melody that twisted around me like a noose. I wanted to pull away from the window, to retreat to the safety of a corner, but I was paralyzed. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the chanting stopped. Silence returned, thick and heavy, masking whatever had lurked in the shadows. But the tension lingered, like a predator waiting to strike. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from within the cabin, silencing my scattered thoughts. I darted toward the noise, heart racing. I stumbled over the table, my foot caught on something, a broken picture frame. That's when I saw it. An old, tattered cardboard box lying open. I hadn't noticed it before, tucked away behind the couch. Curiosity pulled me closer. What could it hold? As I knelt to peer inside, a flicker of movement caught my eye from the window. I looked up, and that's when I realized someone was in the cabin with me. The door swung open slowly, creaking ominously, revealing the dark silhouette of a person standing just beyond the threshold. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the thudding of my heart. The figure stepped closer, and dread settled deep within me. The figure stepped fully into the cabin, the moonlight casting an eerie glow on their face. It was a woman, her features obscured by shadows. At first, relief washed over me. Maybe she was here to help. But a closer look at her eyes quickly squashed that hope. They were empty, like the gaze of a doll. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound brave. She didn't respond but instead took a step further into the room. I pressed back against the wall, my heart racing. She raised her hands, palms turned towards me, as though trying to calm me. "I'm not here to harm you," she said slowly. Her voice had a soft, sing-song quality, almost mesmerizing. "But you need to leave. They're coming." "Who?" I asked, instinct kicking in to challenge her cryptic warning. "Who's coming?" "The ones you saw by the river," she replied, her expression transforming into one of urgent fear. "You shouldn't have looked at them." My mind raced. What did she mean? The shadows from outside? The chanting? I felt the room pulse with dread, the air thickening like a storm was brewing inside my chest. They were close, I could feel it. An instinct to run tugged at my gut. "What do you know about them?" I pressed, desperate for answers. "They want you," she whispered urgently. "They want to take you." Panic surged within me. "Take me where?" "Don't ask questions," she replied, her eyes darting around, as if expecting something to burst through the walls. "Just trust me. We must go now." Before I could respond, a loud thudding echoed from the back of the cabin. She turned quickly, fear etched into her face. "They're here," she gasped. I turned just in time to see a shadow slipping through the back door. My heart sank. It wasn't just her warning, it was real. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. The warmth of her grip felt like a lifeline as we bolted out the door, but the night air was thick with danger. I stumbled forward, and we dashed past the riverbank, the chilling whispers rising again in the distance. The world around us felt alive, almost mocking, as the trees whispered secrets and the moon flickered with a strange light. "Where are we going?" I gasped, struggling to keep up with her pace. "Anywhere but here," she shouted back, fear threading through her voice. I dared a glance over my shoulder. The figures were emerging from the shadows, their movements unnaturally fluid, their eyes fixed on us. We reached the edge of the woods, and I felt another presence, something lurking close behind. I pushed myself harder, my lungs burning. The woman pulled me deeper into the trees, where the underbrush crunched underfoot. Just then, she stopped, peering ahead. "This way." She pointed toward a narrow path veiled by thick brush. I hesitated, but the urgency in her eyes pushed me forward. As we slipped down the path, I felt the chase behind us escalating. The shadows grew closer, and I knew they were relentless. Then, everything went dark. A sudden gust of wind swept through, as if the forest itself exhaled, and I felt myself tumbling. I hit the ground hard, the air knocked from my lungs. And then I heard it again, the chanting, clearer now. It surrounded me, sucking me into something I couldn't fathom. A world where fear twisted reality. I tried to scramble to my feet, my heart pounding as questions raced through my mind. Who was the woman? What did they want? As my vision cleared, I realized I was alone. The woman was gone, and the chanting grew louder, echoing all around me. The shadows were closing in once more, and I had no idea what waited in the dark. I pushed myself up, my hands trembling as I braced against the gritty earth. The chanting wrapped around me, a haunting melody that seemed to pull at my very soul. I scanned my surroundings, but the trees stood still, their silhouettes heavy against the night sky. No sign of the woman. My heart raced as dread coursed through me. "Where are you?" I whispered, my voice lost in the oppressive silence that followed the chant. My own fear felt stifling, as if the very air was thick with unease. I took a tentative step down the narrow path, the forest swallowing my footsteps. A cold breath of wind rustled through the leaves above, and I flinched. Shadows darted at the edges of my vision. The perspective felt warped, everything looked different, too dark, too alive. There it was again, a sound like footfalls echoing from the depth of the woods. My instinct screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground as I strained to listen. Were they the same figures from before, the ones she warned me about? Panic surged once more. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of movement near a cluster of trees. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer. I edged closer, curiosity battling my terror. Shadows shifted again, and I froze. A figure stepped from behind a tree, this one smaller, almost childlike. "You shouldn't be here," the figure said, its voice eerily melodic, echoing the chant. My pulse quickened. It was a boy, maybe 10 or 11, dressed in tattered clothing, with pale skin that glowed faintly in the moonlight. "Where do I go?" I asked breathlessly, every urge in my body telling me to run, yet my curiosity held me there. "What is happening?" He tilted his head, the grace of his movements unnatural. "They want you. But you already knew that, didn't you?" He stepped closer, but a flicker of fear sparked in his gaze. "You need to listen to the river." "The river?" I looked back in its direction, its water glistening, beckoning. "What do you mean?" Before he could reply, the chanting surged, a discordant wave rising around us. The boy's eyes widened in terror. "They're coming. They'll find you." That familiar sense of dread crashed over me, and before I could respond, he vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence in his wake. I stood frozen, realization dawning on me. The darkness felt alive, and I was completely exposed. I took a breath, preparing to flee back the way I came, but the path twisted and shifted, like a maze drawing me in further. Each step echoed with the fear of the unknown. I needed to find the woman, to understand what this all meant. Maybe she held the answers. Then, a chill swept through the air. The moonlight dimmed, and shapes began to materialize from the forest, swirling in the darkness like smoke. My body tensed, instinct urging me to flee. I turned, but the path behind me was gone, swallowed by the shadows. With the chanting growing louder, an unbearable weight settled over me. I was trapped, deeper in whatever nightmare I had stumbled into. My heart pounded painfully in my chest. Suddenly, I spotted a figure, cloaked in shadow, emerging from the darkness. "You've wandered off the path, haven't you?" They whispered, a sickly sweet tone curling around their words. I took a step back, my breath hitching. It wasn't just fear that gripped me, it was a realization of impending doom. That's when I saw the glint of eyes all around me, watching, waiting. The figure stepped closer, its shape shifting in and out of focus. My instincts screamed at me to run, but no path lay before me. I was trapped in a cocoon of dread and uncertainty. The eyes glinted again, mocking me from the trees, a chorus of whispers merging with the chant that enveloped the air. "What do you want from me?" I gasped, my voice barely breaking through the haze of fear. The figure didn't answer, instead extending a hand that shimmered like the moonlit water behind me. I instinctively took a step back, heart racing. "There's no need to be afraid," it cooed, its voice almost sweet. "You'll see. You have something we crave." "What do you mean?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "Who are you?" The figure laughed softly, the sound eerie against the backdrop of distant chanting. "Who we are doesn't matter. What matters is that you have drawn us here. You're tied to the river, whether you know it or not." Tied? The boy's words echoed in my mind. I was drawn to the river, like everyone else around here. Yet, how could that be? "I don't understand," I muttered. "What do you want from me?" "Your blood sings to us," the figure replied, a glint of something sharp, something dangerous in its eyes. The river calls for you. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of the truth, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. I started to back away, but the shadows behind me shifted, shifting from part of the forest into something more defined. The chanting rose, pulling at my thoughts, urging me closer to the figure. Join us, it said, with a voice that caressed the very fibers of my soul. Be with us. Suddenly, I felt a pull, a resonance in my chest that urged me toward the figure. Panic surged as I fought the strange allure. No. I want to join you. I shouted. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and an unholy growl escaped from the depths of the forest. Then everything shifted. The warm glow of the moonlight flickered, dimming to a chilling darkness. The chanting became a cacophony of snarls and screeches. The eyes around me multiplied, materializing into horrific faces twisted in anticipation. They were waiting for my choice. The tension was unbearable. I glanced back at the river. The shimmering surface seemed alive, its dark waters beckoning with a hypnotic pulse. The boy's warning echoed in my mind. Listen to the river. And then, a low, rumbling voice broke through the chaos. The river is not your friend. You must escape before it's too late. Instinctively, I turned toward the source. An older man stood at the edge of the tree line, his silhouette stark against the chaos of shadows and sound. Come with me. He shouted, extending a hand. The figure before me hissed, its charm shattered by his words. No. Stay here. It screamed, but I was already running toward the man. I felt the collective gaze of the shadows upon me as I sprinted. With every step I took, those deadly whispers clawed at my back. Their demands mingled with the growls of frustration. I didn't look back, I focused on the light of the man's hand. As I reached him, the shadows closed in, their forms swirling like a storm. But I was no longer alone. The man's grip was firm, anchoring me to safety. Then I heard the river roar behind us, its waters rising with a terrible fury. What happens if I don't listen? I gasped, the weight of my decision pressing on me with relentless urgency. Then you'll belong to the darkness, he replied, and I caught a flash of fear in his eyes. Those words haunted me. I couldn't shake the feeling that my choice was only beginning. Chapter 2. I took a moment to catch my breath, relief flooding through me as I pulled away from the shadows. The man, whose hand still gripped mine tightly, pulled me into the underbrush, away from the chaos. We stumbled through the thicket, and I struggled to keep up, my heart racing as the storm of whispers faded behind us. Who are you? I panted, glancing over my shoulder. The darkness seemed to pulse, almost alive, but we had a few moments of distance now. I'm Eli, he said breathlessly. I've been watching the river's pull on people like you. He looked into my eyes, deep and assessing. You're special, whether you know it or not. Special? I just want to go home. He shook his head. You can't go back there. Not yet. They have marked you. The urgency in his voice deepened my fear. We need to get away from here quickly. They won't stop until they have what they want. What do they want? I asked, frustration lacing my words. And how do you know about me? We don't have time for all the details. He frowned. There's something about your blood, a connection to the river. It calls to darker things. I've seen it too many times. A chill ran down my spine. The thought made me uneasy but also incredibly curious. But why me? Because you came too close to their domain. He paused, his face tightening. They can sense it when someone is vulnerable. The river has chosen you as a target. Target? The word echoed ominously in my head. I wanted to argue, to deny it all, but deep inside, I felt an unsettling truth. What if I just ignore them? What if I stay away from the river? Eli let out a sharp breath. It's not that simple. They keep coming back. He stopped suddenly, turning to face me fully as he took my shoulders in his hands. You have to trust me. I know a way to protect you, but you have to move quickly. This is insane. I exclaimed, pulling away from his grip. I don't even know you. He opened his mouth to argue, but then there came a horrible crashing from the direction we had just fled. Branches snapped under great weight. A low growl reverberated through the air, echoing in the silence that followed. My heart sank. What is that? The shadows are looking for you, Eli said. Panic flashed in his eyes. We need to go. Now. I felt the ground tremble as whatever hunted us drew closer, and the instinct to flee kicked in once more. I turned to run just as Eli caught my wrist, pulling me back. That way. He shouted, pointing off to our right. Follow me. I didn't have time to question his choices. All I knew was that whatever was behind us wanted me. I sprinted after him, branches clawing at my arms as we slipped deeper into the woods. The only light came from the slivers of moon, obscured by swaying trees. Then I tripped. Barely catching myself before hitting the ground, I looked up only to see a glimmer between the trees. For a split second, it looked like water, but it wasn't the river, it was something else. My breath caught in my throat. That's when I saw it. The surface shimmered but then morphed into shapes I couldn't comprehend. I seemed drawn to it, despite everything I'd just learned. Don't look at it. Eli shouted, pulling me hard against him. But it was too late. Something inside me stirred, pulling me toward it. I fought against it, my heart pounding against my chest, but the lure was undeniable. I was caught between two worlds, the shadow-filled forest and whatever lay just beyond the light. Come on. Eli's voice broke through the chaos, urging me to move. But I hesitated, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on me. The murmurs returned, whispering promises I couldn't ignore. Desperate, I looked at Eli for reassurance, and all I could see was fear mirrored in his eyes. This was only beginning. Chapter 3. Eli's grip tightened as he pulled me along, his urgency cutting through the whispers that still bounced around in my mind. The forest was thick, the trees closing in on us, creating a suffocating wall of darkness. I stumbled, heart racing, every shadow feeling alive. My fear mounted with each breath, tightening like a noose. Keep moving. Eli urged. I darted after him, but glancing back, I could still see the glowing shapes lurking behind the trees. They twisted and writhed. Each glimpse made my stomach churn. Are they coming for me? I asked breathlessly. Yes. His answer was sharp. They've marked you, and now they track you wherever you go. Then why are we still here? Panic seeped into my voice. We can't just run forever. There's a place, a shelter, Eli replied, urgency palpable in his tone. But we need to reach it before they find us. I shot him an incredulous look, a million questions running through my mind. A shelter? What does that even mean? There are remnants of those who have come before you. Guardians, he said, darting through the underbrush like a shadow himself. They know how to protect you if we can get there in time. I wanted to scream. I didn't even know what I was protecting myself from, let alone where I was going. How do they protect me? With what? Trust me. It's all I can say, Eli insisted. Just keep up. We hit a clearing, and my breath caught in my throat. There, in the faint glimmer of moonlight, stood a weathered stone structure. Ivy curled over its sides, but it seemed solid. A wave of hope washed over me. Is this it? Yes. This is our chance, he said, pulling open a heavy door that creaked ominously. Hurry. We stumbled inside, and I felt a strange silence envelop us. Shadows danced along the walls, thick enough to clutch. Eli scanned the corners before closing the door, sealing us in darkness. My heart thudded in my chest. Are they still out there? I whispered, half hoping they hadn't followed us. They can't enter here, Eli told me, though his voice didn't sound entirely confident. Not unless invited. Invited? My eyes widened. You mean they can get in if I? No. He interrupted sharply, rubbing his temples as if to ward off a headache. That's not going to happen. You need to focus on staying safe. I turned, glancing around the small space. Ancient markings adorned the stone, like faded sigils whispering secrets. I could feel something thrumming in the air, a low hum that seemed to resonate with my heartbeat. What is this place? I murmured, running my fingers over the engravings. An ancient sanctuary, Eli explained, leaning against the wall, visibly worn. Built by the ones who want to keep the shadows at bay. I still don't understand what they want with me. I crossed my arms, frustration boiling beneath my fear. Why me, Eli? But before he could answer, the ground beneath us trembled. The sound of scratching nails echoed outside. I could feel the shadows pressing against the walls, searching for an entry point. Everything inside me screamed to run, yet I couldn't. Something's changing, Eli said, eyes wide. They're not going to give up easily. We need to figure out a countermeasure, and fast. No way, I said, fear rising in my chest again. I want to know what they want first. Eli hesitated, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. They want your power, he finally revealed, urgency cracking his steady gaze. And they won't stop until they have it. My mind raced. Power? I was just an ordinary girl. But in that moment, facing the vibrating walls and throbbing energy, a greater truth loomed. Then we need a plan. I inhaled sharply, determination threading through my fear. But just as I thought we might have a chance, the door rattled violently. A low growl filled the air, echoing the pulse of the strange sanctuary. Get ready, Eli said, his expression grim. This is just the beginning. The door shuddered violently against the stone wall, and I pressed my back into the cool surface of the sanctuary. The shadows outside howled, their voices melding into an unearthly choir. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs like a drum, sending tremors through me. Is this place really safe? I whispered, staring at Eli as anxiety churned in my gut. Yes. He glanced at the door, his voice firm but edged with fear. But we need to act quickly. What do we do? Our options felt limited as the guttural growls echoed from behind the door, growing louder with every passing second. Eli's focus shifted back to the symbols etched into the stone walls. These markings, they're protective, he said, pointing to a larger sigil that glimmered momentarily like starlight when caught at just the right angle. But they need to be activated by your energy. By my energy? I echoed, confusion swirling in my mind as I rubbed my hands together anxiously. What does that even mean? Think of something powerful, something that ignites determination inside you, Eli urged, gaze darting between me and the door as the shadows pressed closer. The hope of fighting back, the desire to protect what you love. Anything. Just focus on it. Okay, I said, trying to channel every feeling of resilience I could. It felt like trying to grasp smoke with bare hands. I'll try. With my heart pounding, I closed my eyes and dug deep, recalling my father's laughter and the warmth of summer days spent by the river. Those memories anchored me, sparking a flicker of strength in that whirlwind of fear. I pictured those memories pouring out from my center, reaching for the sigils. As if summoned by my thoughts, the markings began to glow, their energy dancing along the edges of the symbols. Eli's expression shifted from desperation to hope. That's it. Keep going. Just like that? I asked, a mixture of disbelief and determination coursing through me. Yes. Focus on what matters, your life, your freedom." He cheered, his encouragement trembling with urgency. The growls outside whirled into an anguished wail. I felt the shadows hammer against the door, but the sigils pulsed brighter, intertwining with my emotions, filling the small space with a hopeful, warm light. I embraced the surge of power building within me. But as I focused, a thought struck me: what if this wasn't the end? What if they weren't defeated, merely delayed? I hesitated, uncertainty creeping in. What awaited me outside? The truth flickered in the back of my mind like a distant echo: I had felt a bond to the river before all this. What if this was just the beginning of something far greater? Suddenly, the ground vibrated, and the door quaked as the figures outside unleashed all of their anger onto it. "Hurry!" Eli shouted, pulling me from those thoughts. "We can't lose this chance." As I let the energy fill me, the air crackled like a summer storm, and the sigils blazed with luminous fire. I released the energy like a ripple across the stone, feeling the sanctuary respond, summoned by the strength I'd conjured. Then silence fell. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. I opened my eyes. The door vibrated against the force pressing upon it, and the air shimmered with possibilities. The shadows were still there, waiting, but my heart beat strong. "Now!" Eli yelled, and together, we plunged into the light. We burst through the door, footsteps echoing in the night as we raced back into the woods, hearts pounding in sync with the fading shadows chasing behind us. But something tugged at the edge of my consciousness. I had escaped, but would they ever truly let go? We dodged through thickets, branches whipping at my face. I didn't pause to look back, trusting Eli to lead. Ahead, I could see the outline of the river shimmering, its dark waters beckoning, alluring. "Keep running!" Eli yelled, sprinting faster as the howls of rage grew more distant. But I felt a pull from the river, a deeper instinct driving me toward its edge. This time, instead of fear, I sensed a connection, a bond irrevocably woven with my fate. "What do we do now?" I gasped as we skidded to a stop at the riverbank, panting heavily. Its waters flowed like liquid veils under the moonlight, hypnotizing and volatile. "Now we confront what has been awakened." Eli's voice was steady. "You're tied to this place. We face it together." As I looked into the depths of the water, the images of shadowy figures flickered beneath the surface, their great eyes entrancing, taunting me with whispers of dreams I could scarcely understand. What did the river want from me? And as I stood there, at the precipice of the unknown, I realized I didn't just want to escape, I wanted to know what lay ahead. What was this strange power linked to me? The haunting laughter brushed against my ears again, a promise lingering on the edge of twilight. I took a breath, heart pounding. "Whatever happens," I said resolutely, "we face this together." Eli nodded, determination etching his features. And as we stepped toward the water, a transformation began, changing everything, plunging us into a mystery far deeper than either of us could imagine. I knew then, as we stood at the brink of the river, that even if we escaped tonight, the shadows would always be waiting, whispering, and the river was just beginning to reveal its secrets.